I want to start out with the latest developments at USAID because these reports are wild. A senior official at USAID has reportedly instructed the agency's remaining staff to convene at the agency's now former headquarters in Washington for an all-day group effort to destroy documents, including many which contain sensitive information. Now, the materials earmarked for destruction include contents of the agency's classified, safes and personnel documents at the Ronald Reagan building. That's according to an email sent by USAID's acting executive director, Erica Carr, and obtained by Politico. Now, the email didn't provide any reason for the document destruction, but I can't believe this. What are they trying to hide?
Well, Gabriella, I have no idea, but I know that we should know. I know that there should be investigations into this, both within the administration and from Congress and the relevant congressional committees that are responsible for having oversight over USAID. I mean, this is one of the sketchiest stories that I have seen in years. I mean, this is just utterly wild, frankly, borderline preposterous stuff. I mean, the USAID is having roughly 80% of its staff cut. So, I mean, I guess the people there are basically like literally in burn it all down, shred it all down mode. But I have no idea exactly what they're trying to hide. I mean, there's probably some sort of gross venality. I mean, probably some sort of cronyism, some nepotism, some giving of contracts to potentially terrorist organizations. I mean, I'm really just speculating here. I don't have the goods here. I don't have the receipts, but I know that this is the kind of thing that the American people really ought to know. You know, if Donald Trump's drain the swamp platform means anything at all, surely it means figuring out why bureaucrats in agencies that frankly should not exist are literally burning documents down. So Congress should be on this literally tomorrow. If they're not on it already there, we should have the House Oversight Committee getting to ground zero of this, the administration itself, Secretary of State Rubio, Attorney General Pam Bondi, whoever has to act should act, because this is extraordinarily sketchy stuff. American
Yeah.
people deserve to figure out what the heck is going on.
And we already have some of the receipts from USAID, some of the waste, millions spent on DEI in Serbia, millions spent on DEI musicals in Ireland, and then, the tens of thousands on trans comic books in Peru. So much waste. Now we're seeing documents being destroyed. A very interesting development. Marco Rubio confirmed, as you mentioned, that after a 6-week review, more than 80% of USAID programs have been cancelled. 83%, in fact. He said that the 5,200 contracts that are now cancelled spent tens of billions of dollars in ways that did not serve, and in some cases even harmed, the core national interests of the United States. And he said that in consultation with Congress, we intend for the remaining 18% of the programs we are keeping to be administered more effectively under the State Department. Thank you to Doge and our hardworking team for achieving this historic reform. But it's such a significant reduction. I suppose it really highlights just the amount of waste in this agency.
So USAID is a creature of the Cold War. It was created during the John F. Kennedy presidential administration in the early 1960s. I mean, picture the Cuban Missile Crisis, the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, the notion that the United States and Soviet Union, two massive nuclear powers, would not try to destroy each other there. So it was done kind of at a time when the Americans and the Soviets were competing on the global geopolitical chessboard in kind of a soft power competition, kind of a soft information operation global game, basically. And in that context, USAID maybe made some sense. I mean, maybe it made some sense to try to get bang for your buck when it comes to trying to export American influence into Southeast Asia or to Eastern Europe or Northern Africa, various parts of the world that perhaps were at prey of falling under the Soviet sphere of influence, frankly, right here in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas, as well as evidenced by Cuba. But whatever purpose USAID may have had there, surely at this point, 35 years, 36 years, frankly, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, at this point, USAID has outlived its usefulness. It's also an unconstitutional agency, by the way. USAID was constituted as a purported, quote unquote, independent agency, which the geniuses at the time thought meant that it could operate outside of the hierarchy, outside of the bureaucracy of Article 2 of our Constitution, which establishes the presidency. That's actually not how it works. The Constitution here in America is very clear. There is one man who wields the executive power. That is the President of the United States. If there is any body, any agency that purports itself, that holds itself out to be outside of the chain of command such that it is not accountable to the President of the United States, that is unconstitutional. And in fact, the Supreme Court is probably going to have a clear and direct ability to weigh on this sooner rather than later. It'll be one of many high-profile legal hearings that the Supreme Court of the United States will hear based on the early conduct of the administration and, frankly, the early conduct of the leftist outside NGOs that are engaged in lawfare right now against the administration. But one thing I know for sure, Gabrielle, is that this agency is just a profligate waste of Americans' hard-earned taxpayer dollars, and I salute Elon Musk and Doge for trying to send them the way of the dodo bird.
Absolutely. Look, I want to speak to you about the Democrats. They've called, or some of them have called, for the release of an alleged pro-Hamas activist arrested by ICE. The Senate Judiciary Committee Democrats posted an image on X with the caption, "Free Mahmoud Khalil." Now, they posted that to X. Now, Mahmoud Khalil was a graduate student and at the centre of anti-Israel protests that turned so disgustingly violent and ugly at Columbia University last year. He's acted as a spokesperson for this anti-Israel pro-Hamas student group at Columbia University called Columbia University Apartheid Divest, or CUAD. And to give you a sense of what CUAD is like, it says that it's fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. It believes that October 7 was a moral, military and political victory, and declared that October 7, well, they justified October 7 saying that violence is the only path forward. Anyway, it's disgusting to even read this out loud. But now anti-Israel activists who want to support this person, they're taken to the streets in protest. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has made it clear that his department would be revoking the visas and all green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. Here he is.
Come to the United States as a visitor, which is what a visa is, which is how this individual entered this country, as on a visitor's visa. Okay, you are here as a visitor. We can deny you that visa. We can deny you that if you tell us when you apply, "Hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages." If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would. If you actually end up doing that, once you're in this country on such a visa, we will revoke it. And if you end up having a green card, not citizenship, but a green card as a result of that visa while you're here in those activities, we're going to kick you out.
Marco Rubio making a lot of sense there. Is it disappointing to see the way some Democrats are behaving, wanting to keep alleged pro-Hamas supporters in America?
Well, Gabriella, first of all, Marco Rubio is entirely correct on the actual law. So there is a statute here called the Immigration and Nationality Act that goes back to the 1950s, which has a very clear provision in it that says that if you are a supporter of a foreign terrorist organization, then you cannot get a visa. And as it turns out, if it's revealed after the fact that you lied and said that you are not a supporter, you check the box no, but it actually is yes, then your visa can be revoked automatically. Frankly, actually, I don't even think you need the Immigration Nationality Act. I mean, the very notion that any non-citizen has a right to stay in the United States or in any sovereign country for the matter, that kind of just defeats the entire purpose of what it means to be a sovereign entity. If there is one right that is implicit in the entire notion of sovereignty, it's the right to exclude, to kick people out. That's what makes you sovereign in the first place there. And that's been American constitutional law forever there. But when it comes to the Democrats there, unfortunately, Gabriella, I am wholly unsurprised. I mean, I continue, on the one hand, I'm just continually just bemused and perplexed by the heroes that they choose out, people like this absolute degenerate really just loathsome individual there. But I mean, Democrats really just have no low at this point, Gabriella. I mean, it seems like every time you think they can't go lower, they fight. Just last week at Donald Trump's joint presidential address to Congress, they couldn't be bothered to get off their rear end to cheer for Peyton McNabb, the biological female who had a traumatic brain injury because a biological male cosplaying as a quote unquote transgender woman slams a ball into her face. They couldn't get off their butts to cheer for the family of Lake and Riley. I mean, every time you think they can't go low, they somehow find a way to go lower and lower. But ultimately, the fact that they are choosing Mahmoud Khalil, and by the way, Mahmoud Khalil apparently has 19 lawyers currently representing him, because all of these left-wing law firms here in America are trotting out the pro bono work for these attorneys. Find one J6er, one January 6th person who was wrongfully charged, who had more than one or two attorneys, let alone 19 there. So it's a total just complete mismatch there. But ultimately, it speaks to a broader societal and moral rot. And Gabrielle, I have my first book coming out this Tuesday, Israel and Civilization, The Fate of the Jewish Nation, The Destiny of the West, available for pre-order now. And I talk about this in chapter 1 of the book, actually, how these uprisings, these uproars of anti-Jewish sentiment, anti-Semitism, it's never about the Jews. It's never been about the Jews going back to literally ancient Egypt with Pharaoh in the Bible. It's never about the Jews. It's always about the decline of a society. And that's what's actually going on here tragically in America and all throughout the Western world here. The Jews are always the canary in the coal mine. In this case, it's happening at Columbia University and other Ivy League campuses, but it's not about the Jews. Unfortunately, it's about a broader societal moral rot. God willing, we'll recover our sense of purpose and values sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and we're really seeing that play out. I think people who haven't woken up to it are starting to realize that that is what is happening.